Thank you for joining us today. Quick introductions. My name is Stuart Waltz from Usherwood Office Technology. I've been with Usherwood since 2001. Focused on building out. My current role is focused on building out our managed, co-managed, and governance, risk, and compliance service offerings across the Northeast. I have a number of cybersecurity related certifications that I've attained over the years. And before I hand it over to Andrew, we have Q&A. Feel free to throw questions in there, and as time allows at the end, we'll answer as many of those as we can. And with that, I'll hand it over to Andrew Pantaleon from Huntress to take it from here.
So, as Stuart was saying, my name is Andrew Pantaleon. I'm a technical account manager at Huntress. We are partnered with Usherwood to provide them the software that they use to kind of keep you all protected. So, when it comes to that, just a little bit of background on me. I came from the MSP world, so I was one of those that was hands-on, building out systems, making sure everything was up and running for customers, all that kind of stuff. Was a bit over a decade there. From there, worked on the vendor side for a number of years. So now been with Huntress and more on the cybersecurity side since last year. Stuart has a little bit more in the way of actual credentials than I do, but I am working on mine. So, Stuart, catching up to you. That CISSP, though, can take me a little while. But little fun fact in this one, usually gets a chuckle out of people, is I used to work at Renaissance fairs. So, yes, I am that particular IT guy. So, without further ado, we're going to kind of jump into what we're talking about today. And that is busting some of the myths around hackers and essentially what is going on in the world of cybercrime. So, one of the main myths is that hackers are genius basement supervillains, and that hackers all wear black hoodies and anonymous masks and are sitting there with energy drinks just pounding them. Or if you figure, hey, you know what? Maybe they're also James Bond. Guess what? They're not. They don't have to be. So before we kind of get into a little bit more of why they don't have to be James Bond, why they're not that person sitting in their basement, pounding energy drinks and writing code, we're going to talk a little bit about kind of the wording and the language across these. So term hackers is an overall term that essentially covers anyone that has the knowledge to actually compromise the system. That is on the penetration testing side, that is on the security detection side, that is on the cybercrime side. So hackers, not always a bad term. Attacker, yet again, gray area on this one, because even if someone is doing a penetration test or anything like that, they're still an attacker of that system. So really the one that we kind of use and as the kind of negative connotation is going to be the threat actor. That is the actual person that is doing this for nefarious reasons. Whether that be just one person, a group of people, or a full organization, or sometimes even governments. Granted, not really going to get too much into that one. We're going to get more into the business of cybercrime, not the kind of governments playing all the stuff that they do. That's beside the point. So, cybercrime nowadays is a business, and it has gotten to the point, and I haven't been able to create a slide for this one yet, but it has gotten to the point where cybercrime, in terms of finances and how much they make, especially when it comes to things like ransomware, cybercrime has actually eclipsed the drug industry, which is one of those really baffling numbers, is an absolutely astronomical amount of money. This is from IC3, which is a government body that deals with cybercrime complaints. In the past 5 years, 4.2 million complaints made to them, $50.5 billion in losses reported, equaling $836,000 on average for a cybercrime incident. That includes, of course, things like ransoms, the downtime for businesses, so essentially loss of productivity and those kinds of things. So when it comes to that, cybercrime, making money, there are all sorts of ways that they do it. There are specialized groups within these. They all work together as a team. Don't try and make heads or tails of this slide. It is meant to be overwhelming to show just all the different sides of the cybercrime industry and what different people and organizations within it specialize in. But we're going to kind of dive into two main ones, and then from there, we're going to talk about the hot buzzword AI. So, first one is going to be phishing as a service. This is something that has crept up more in the cybercrime industry, where similar to how Huntress provides Usherwood with software, and then they go ahead and use that to protect you all, there are cybercrime organizations out there that actually have online stores where you can go ahead and buy phishing as a service. Hey, we want to go ahead and try and break into this company, or we want to try and get into the email of this celebrity. Those kinds of things. They will actually provide the infrastructure and sometimes even the expertise, run it themselves, and then just go ahead and at the end provide the access based off of that phishing attack. So this is one of those that is essentially taking people that don't have the technical know-how to be able to actually phish someone, steal those credentials, steal those session tokens, the things that'll get them into accounts to steal data, and going ahead and saying, hey, I'm just going to go buy this service. Like you would go buy a warranty or anything like that. Same thing. The other one is on the other side, and this one makes a lot of money. And this is ransomware as a service. Ransomware, of course, being where someone gets into a machine, they go ahead and encrypt all the documents, making them unusable, locking down the data, and essentially saying, hey, we'll give you the keys to your data back, but you're going to have to pay us first before we give you those keys. Everything's going to be under lock. So this yet again opens up the ability for people with little to no actual technical know-how to be able to track these down, get a temporary license key, and go ahead and deploy this to whoever they want. Hey, we go ahead and walk in somewhere, install something on someone's machine, boom, lock them down, and then we ransom them. Or, you know what? Maybe they have the skilling to be able to phish someone or send them malicious links and those kinds of things, but they don't have the know-how to actually create the software. They can go ahead and buy it pretty much off the shelf. So as we continue on, kind of diving into how these organizations work and why we're kind of talking about the fact that cybercrime has become a business is because they have started running as businesses. They're getting to the point where they have specialized sectors within them. So they have teams that are specialized in phishing, in SMS spoofing, in creating ransomware, in creating all these different things. To the point where they're creating manuals for the people that are working for them. I use working with quotes, of course, but essentially, with that, being able to say, hey, this is what you do as the first step. This is what you do as the second step. What you do once you get into something. And then, even to the point of having an actual internal HR team, especially when it comes to things like scam call centers and those kinds of things. They have full employees, they have HR teams, they're doing interviews. So, this is from a dark web posting. If you read through this at a glance, who are we? We do not target. Here are a list of people that we require. This looks like pretty much almost any LinkedIn job posting that you'd see. So they are actively searching. They are looking for people. They have job boards, and they're essentially bringing people in, paying them money, whether that be a salary or be, hey, you're going to get a percentage of whatever we get from this. There is a pay structure. Don't think they're going to give them benefits like healthcare and all that kind of stuff, but They are definitely running more as organizations as opposed to just lone wolves nowadays. This is a um, article from CNBC just to kind of highlight this. Leaked document shows notorious ransomware group has a full HR department, does performance reviews, and even has an employee of the month. To the point of them actually using things like HR software internally to track what people are doing and making sure that they are holding up what they were pulled in to do. So, of course, the thing that is top of mind for most people is what about AI? Is AI a threat today? And I'm going to give you the kind of short answer with the title of the next slide and then kind of dive into a little bit deeper. So, AI is definitely a threat nowadays. That is not to say that you should go run, put on your tinfoil hat, hide under the desk, and just wonder when AI is going to take over. It's not to that point. But it is definitely making things easier for threat actors to be able to go ahead, get into systems, be able to do stuff with little to no know-how, and create things that we haven't seen before. So to kind of put that in perspective, there is a operating system called Kali Linux. Kali Linux is highly used by penetration testers, security analysts, all those kinds of typical day-to-day cybersecurity professionals. But it's also used by threat actors alongside other custom tooling to really be able to scan systems, see what's going on, figure out what the vulnerabilities are, and exploit those. Well, back in 2025, with the proliferation of AI, Kali Linux created a link into Gemini CLI. Gemini being an AI large language model to be able to actually run some of the tooling within Kali Linux automated through those language models using plain text. Hey, I want to penetration test this IP address, and from there, be able to have the system automatically run tests against it. Then from there, in one of their newer releases, they went ahead and actually integrated an MCP server. An MCP server is essentially a translation between a language model and the tools on a system that can be linked into any language model that supports MCPs. So Gemini, ChatGPT, Claude Code, you name it, even some of the local ones that have less restrictions on them, being able to link into those and in plain English, essentially vibe hack. Like if you've ever heard the term vibe coding, vibe hacking is a thing nowadays. To put this in a little bit more perspective, and because I like being hands-on and playing with things, I went ahead and downloaded a copy of Kali Linux, went ahead and installed Claude Code on it, connected that MCP server, and went ahead and attacked a device in my system. So that was a NAS device. So NAS, of course, being a storage device that has some server capabilities on it. I have a Plex server on there where I host movies and stuff like that. Don't tell the movie companies, but neither here nor there. I went ahead and pointed Claude Code at that and said, hey, here's the IP address of my NAS. Go ahead and run a test against it. From there, I do host a website on there as well. So that is on there. That is behind a Cloudflare tunnel, which allows that secure access from my house out into the internet. So what it was able to do, and this was yet again automated just by telling it in plain language what to do, it was able to go through, find that it was hosting a website, figure out that I was running WordPress on it, figure out all the versions, show me the CVEs on it. It was also able to, and this isn't part of the screenshot, it was able to see the private key of my Cloudflare tunnel and actually output that private key, which if someone gets a private key, they can actually break into encryption and tunnels. So it was one of those. I was doing this at like 2 in the morning with everything that was able to output and show me was vulnerable and actually be able to attack and output. I went ahead and shut down everything that night, went to sleep, and had some of the worst sleep I'd had in months. So it is one of those where AI is making things that much easier for attackers to do day-to-day stuff that they wouldn't be able to do otherwise. They are also using AI to automate things on the back end, being able to run things at larger scales than they used to be able to with normal just coding and trying to run automation to say, hey, go scan this, go scan that, tell me when something is found. They're able to automate that at much larger scales with less people nowadays. Alongside that, as AI continues to evolve, one of the other things that they're being used for is things like phishing. Phishing, of course, being sending those kinds of emails, SMS messages, whatever it may be, to go ahead and try and lure someone into giving their username and password, their credentials, get logged into those systems and steal data, ransom them off, send other phishing emails to the internal company, making it look like it's coming from the CEO, CFO, whoever it may be that is a high value target. So it used to be phishing emails were clumsy. They were written by people where English wasn't their main language, or they were meant to be so just brazenly bad that they were only catching the low-hanging fruit, the people that didn't know any better. Nowadays, with AI, they can write much better phishing emails. They can get communication back and forth with someone, use some of that previous communication to go ahead and load that into the language model, say, hey, scan through those emails that I've had with this particular person, and then write me an email that sounds like them. Because of course everyone writes everything differently. Word choice, cadence, verbiage, all those kinds of things are going to be different. So using the language model, loading in data from them, and being able to make it really sound like it is your CEO talking, especially if they are a little bit more well known, they have articles out there, all those kinds of things. There's a large pool of data. So nowadays, with AI, the proliferation of phishing, and how easily it is to clone websites nowadays. Even using AI, hey, go take a look at this website. Go ahead and write me code to make it look to make a website look similar. They're able to even trick some of the better people within the industry, including cybersecurity professionals, because hey, you know what? We're still fallible as well. And just to kind of drive this point home, this entire graphic here was actually made using Gemini. So went ahead and told it, hey, I want a graphic with what phishing emails used to look like versus what they look like now. And it created everything, the wording on here, highlighted things, pointed out the specific things on it. Literally, I did not give it anything except show me what bad phishing emails used to look like and what good AI assisted new emails look like. It went ahead and did everything else. So AI is a tool that can be used for very nefarious purposes. Alongside that, and this is definitely a little bit less prevalent and definitely more on the enterprise side where there are much more high value targets. But one of the other things, and this is just something to touch on and have in the back of your mind, there's gotten to a point where AI is able to actually help fake job seekers get into companies. This is all the way down to having video interviews with actual HR representative, hiring managers, all those kinds of things, and having an AI actually behind the scenes changing someone's face entirely so that they look like a fake set of credentials that they went ahead and submitted, or stolen credentials. Hey, here's an ID, and the actual AI is changing their face and or voice to go ahead and align more with that so that they can actually get into a company. They may be in a known nation state that is more hostile. and they're going ahead and remotely acting like, hey, I am Joe from Colorado, and really they're in North Korea or somewhere like that. And they're actually getting into these companies, getting in as actual employees, and then from there, filtering off as much data as possible to go ahead and either ransom the company, leak the data, those kinds of things. So definitely less prevalent, much harder to do. But if you've ever seen any of those AI videos that have come out and seen how well those are starting to do nowadays in just being able to generatively say, hey, Gemini, I want a video of a cat chasing a butterfly, whatever it may be. And they're looking to the point of almost being real nowadays. People are using that to be able to alter appearances, create real looking fake credentials, those kinds of things. So, additional things to be mindful of, but yet again, typically more reserved for the larger enterprises and much more high value targets because it does take a lot of AI compute power to be able to do that kind of stuff. So, when it comes to that, when it comes to AI, you shouldn't be super worried. When it comes to tooling, the things that are happening in the background are still going to be the same indicators, whether it be AI that's running it or it is Joe hacker in his basement that is trying to hack you. The overall things that are happening on the systems are still going to have these same similar indicators. So don't freak out. AI is not going to take over the world anytime soon, but it is definitely making things easier, which means we just have to fight back harder. Alongside that, now jumping into kind of myth two, where, hey, we have nothing of value. We're just a company doing paperwork, or we're a manufacturing company. We are a healthcare company, those kinds of things. All we have is data. We don't have any assets or anything like that. Well, you know what? Everyone has something of value. Data is valuable to someone, especially in the ransomware space, where they can go ahead and lock down your data, make it so that you can't work your day to day, and from there, essentially extort money from you. So, my company is not a target. Everyone is potentially a target, whether you're a one-man shop or a 1 million man shop. There is still some ability to be targeted because ransomware doesn't discriminate. It is, even if they get $100 off you or $100,000 off you, money is money to them. My company has nothing of value. Like I said, all data is worth something to someone. Next Gen AV is enough to cover us. We'll get into that a little bit more in upcoming slides. And security is too cumbersome. We pair with Usherwood to go ahead and make sure that we are giving them the expertise behind our tools. We are giving them the body behind our tools, which is our security operations center, which is a team of trained threat intelligence hunters, SOC analysts, all those kinds of things, to be able to parse all that data already for Usherwood so they can make sure that their day to day in covering you is handled and they know when Huntress is calling them that they need to jump on that call because we have actually found something that is going on in one of the environments. We try and make sure that everything is not super noisy, that everything is actionable. So we've already put our expertise on the line to make sure that everything that we are bubbling up is a true and real incident. So, kind of touching on that, AV is good enough. I've got AV, I'm good. That's a myth nowadays. The good enough myth of AV. Traditional AV and other point solutions are not enough. And the reason for that is antivirus software necessitates looking for fingerprints on stuff, whether that be hashes, whether that be known bad code, those kinds of things. It is looking for very specific hard coded things versus looking for behaviors. So, to put in perspective, when it comes to known threats, Essentially, what we've seen, and you can see the link down there to the report that we pulled this from. But essentially, this was for 2024. The report wasn't out for 2025 when this slide was created. But essentially, within 2024, and this is accelerating, of course, within 12 months of 2024, 102 million variation of malware and viruses created. I'm not going to go through all of them, but the really blinding number is the fact that per second, 3.2 new variations of malware are seen. AV can't keep up with that many. That is having to go through, classify them, make sure something is actually malicious, write the detection rule, update the antivirus, and go from there. So that's where we kind of switch into additional solutions, things like endpoint detection and response, identity threat detection and response, which is tooling that we provide to Usherwood, which is more behavioral based. So when it comes to just running antivirus, it misses new and invasive malware because malware is constantly changing itself nowadays, even to the point where there have been one or two seen in the wild where they can actually, using AI tooling and APIs into those, actually change their code at will. So if something ends up getting blocked within it, it's able to go ahead and actually reach out through the back end and actually mutate itself. So there are things that are coming out nowadays that are much more resilient to the ability to say, hey, here's a static detection that we're looking for, and we have to continue to look for those behavior. So that's where endpoint detection and response fills the gap left by AV. And I'm going to kind of get into a little bit of what this is not something I came up with. This is kind of an industry analogy, is the Swiss cheese analogy. Sure, pretty much everyone on here has seen Swiss cheese at least once in their lifetime. Swiss cheese typically has holes in it, and very tasty cheese is actually one of my favorite cheeses, especially a nice aged one. But essentially, the holes in Swiss cheese are similar to the holes in software applications. No matter what, there are always going to be holes because programming is not perfect. It is essentially an art. There are always going to be holes, there are going to be mistakes, even with AI coding it, because AI is still built off of human knowledge and the knowledge gaps from there. So when it comes to those, the reason why we kind of call it the Swiss cheese analogy is when you start stacking slices of Swiss cheese on top of the sandwich, you're not typically stacking them one right on top of the other. They're shifting off to the side, they're kind of moving around. You're grabbing a different piece. So the holes aren't going to line up, essentially meaning that you're going to get to a point where, with enough slices of cheese, you're going to have little to no actual holes through all of the cheese. That's where security ends up becoming a layered approach. AV is definitely well and good to have because it does have those static detections to be able to hit the known bad threats. But then you layer EDR on top of there to cover the holes left by AV, to look at the more behavior-based things, the things that can change and move around and are based on behaviors or new things that are coming out, and being able to create less holes. So the other thing to kind of talk about is the largest attack surface of any organization. And when it comes to that, a lot of people tend to think, oh, it's the devices, it's the potential for viruses. Actually, wrong. The largest attack surface nowadays is humans. And that is human involvement, whether that be someone clicking on a phishing email, someone misconfiguring a admin user, someone downloading something that they shouldn't have. And to put that in perspective, this is from a Verizon data breach investigative report that they put out for 2025. 60% of breaches that they looked into had some sort of human involvement in it. Whether that be, like I said, someone giving out credentials through a phishing attack, someone downloading something that they shouldn't have, someone misconfiguring things. There is a large human touch point to every, not every, but a vast majority of data breaches. So when it comes to the identity side and the human side, identity, of course, being the things like Microsoft 365 logins, G Suite logins, which are then commonly used to access tons of other applications. If you've ever seen that button, log in with Microsoft here, when you're trying to log into Monday.com, Workday for HR stuff, your LinkedIn profile, whatever it may be, those are known as single sign-on applications, which are using that identity to say, hey, this is the person that should be accessing it. So identity is kind of the new thing that is the most prevalent thing that people are going after when it comes to cybercrime, because it is one of the easiest things to go after and opens up the door to a lot more things. So things like unauthorized access, identity theft and misuse, even alert fatigue, because, hey, there are tons of attempts happening on those. Data loss, if someone gets into an identity, what data can be exfiltrated from there? So these are kind of the new things that cyber criminals are going after because it's the easy way in. So when it comes to these are a couple point solutions that can be done to really kind of help when it comes to limiting the attack surface. So things like multi-factor authentication, which still isn't perfect. A lot of people complain about I have to put in my token every day, week, whatever it may be. So it's limited in scope, but there are still certain things that'll actually bypass that. There are things like session hijacking, which I'll get into. I believe it's the next slide or the slide after, kind of discuss how that works. But then you have things like conditional access policies. Those are kind of static rules. They don't change around with the users. It is just, hey, this user can access from this IP address or this location. That's about it. Still can be gotten around using session hijacking. Email spam filters, yes, useful in making sure that spam emails aren't getting through, but for the times that they do, and especially if someone gets into the environment through one of the through like a session hijack or credential theft. A lot of times, a lot of spam filters don't work on internal email addresses sending to the actual internal company. So, kind of the modern battlefield. Attackers may already be in your environment. Woo, doom and gloom. Yes and no. So one of the things that we do, and this is going to be whenever a new identity is brought on to the Huntress ITDR platform. So anytime Usherwood deploys to your company, we go through and we actually do a look back through the environment. We look for any indicators of compromise, anything that may already be there, and we go ahead and one report on that, and of course, block anything that we see. So even if someone is already in there, we'll find them. That's what we're here for. Going through a little bit more, why monitor, detect, and respond? And that's kind of because hackers are starting to blend in. They are living off the land with some of the tooling. So some of them are using things like breaking into DocuSign accounts, using those to send out legitimate looking PDFs that are coming from a known good email address because they are coming directly from DocuSign or from Adobe's signing platform or those kinds of things. And those PDFs that are being sent out actually contain, hey, here's here's this whatever information they're sending, and there's a link to see more information. And that's actually the malicious link right there. But everything passed the spam filters because it was coming from the real DocuSign.com. The email headers weren't faked, so it wasn't spoofing anything. And then from there, it's just relying on the end user knowing whether to actually click into that document or not. And of course, if they should be putting in their credentials. So when it comes to that, 29% of Huntress identified incidents in Q3 of 2023. And to yell at the marketing team for that being a little bit older, but featured lolbin or similar abuse of a tool for intrusion. Lolbin being an OAuth application that essentially allows attackers to get into environments. Um, and then 27% leveraged built-in scripting frameworks as a tool for intrusion. So when it comes to those things like PowerShell built into the system's command line, typically used for launching a lot of things. But even outside of that, there are additional tools that can be used internally to be able to actually kind of live off the land, use tools that are meant to be running on the systems, and essentially fork those off. We've seen an uptick in what are called command and control servers. Those are essentially what control what is happening on viruses that are implanted in devices to essentially say, hey, what the next step is, where it should be sending data, those kinds of things. Those have always been a thing in the overall sphere of things. One of the new ways people are doing that, because it's pretty easy to find those command and control servers nowadays, see weird IP addresses that the viruses are reaching out to in Russia, wherever it may be, China, North Korea, known bad infrastructure. One of the crazier attacks that we've seen when it comes to command and control servers, also known as C2 servers, is actually using API tokens into things like Claude Code or ChatGPT to actually reach out to them, which looks like legitimate traffic from an actual user because they're logging into ChatGPT, they're asking how to write their new email. So it kind of blends in with that. Essentially, what they're doing is they are using that backend to reach out to something like a ChatGPT, which ChatGPT has the ability to go through and parse a website, parse an IP address, look for things on those, and then based off the output that it's getting from that. So a prompt could be, go check this website and tell me what the plain text is on there. And from there, the text on that website is just whatever the next code is for that virus to do its next thing. And essentially, it's just pushing that back down like it would any other response from ChatGPT. So it all looks like normal network traffic. So yet again, we're having to, instead of just looking for static threats, we are having to look into those behaviors, what tools are doing it. Hey, we're seeing PowerShell reaching out to ChatGPT on a normal user that is not a privileged user. Hey, that's something that shouldn't be happening. And essentially from there, that's where the EDR kicks in to be able to go ahead and block those threats that are using tooling that is already built into the systems to try and blend in as a normal user. So the low-hanging fruit is acting to be picked. So exposed services, no multi-factor authentication configured, unpatched and outdated software, and assets missing security tools. We, as part of our platform to Usherwood, we go ahead and expose all these to them so that they can actually go through, see and make sure that the threat surface that you guys have is as minimal as possible. We can show them which accounts do and don't have MFA configured down to specific identities. We can go ahead and show them any OAuth applications for the Microsoft 365 tenants that are outdated, have been added in X period of time if they have an overabundance of permissions on them, things like that. And then this is kind of that one that I was talking about. Need to remind myself to rearrange these slides. This is essentially a flowchart of a session hijack. So essentially, an attacker goes through, sends a phishing email, that goes out to the users, and then the user, when they click that link that's in there, they're actually accessing what is called attacker in the middle infrastructure. So they're going to a website that looks like the Microsoft login, looks like the Facebook, Instagram, you name it, website login, and they're going ahead and adding their credentials in. Then what's happening is that fake web page is reaching out, relaying those back to some other attacker infrastructure, and it's going ahead and putting that into the real website over on that attacker infrastructure. Then the fake website asks you for your token. You think you've gotten past the first page. Hey, cool. We're good. Let's go ahead and put in our token. It's forwarding that token to the attacker's infrastructure. That attacker now has been logged in from that nefarious machine. They show you a fake, oh, hey, this errored website, re-forwards you to the main Microsoft login. You chalk it up to, hey, something went wrong. Boom, you put in your username and password. You get logged in. You don't even realize that you got phished. Then from there, the attacker now has access. And as you see down at the bottom, the attacker now has gotten that session token from that fake login that you did. They're able to use that to bypass MFA checks, remain signed in for whatever is the expiration length of that token. And then from there, they're able to get into the actual legitimate website. They're able to get into M365. They're able to do things as if they were that user, even though they never knew what the password was. They just went through and passed that through to their infrastructure. And that's why we say just having MFA turned on is not the end all be all. Having conditional access policies is not the end all be all. You definitely need something looking for behaviors both on the identity and on the endpoint side. So, how to fight back? And that's a layered defense. Like I mentioned, the Swiss cheese analogy before, coming full circle a little bit. So, there are a range of products that we offer, and the main ones Usherwood is using, but does have access to, is going, but does have access to the full range of things from us, is our EDR, ITDR. All of the tooling that we have and that we provide to Usherwood is handled by our SOC before we go ahead and of course, say, hey, this is a known bad thing that's happening. We've already gone through and made sure that it is not a false positive, that it is not noise, that we are not tying up Usherwood while they could be doing other things to make sure that you all are handled, protected, and that your day-to-day is running. We are making sure that everything that goes to them is a well and true known threat to be able to remediate. So overall, defense is challenging. What can you do? And this is essentially just an overview of some basic how to handle day-to-day things. So first on the left-hand side, asset inventory, making sure that all systems that are out there are known. Hey, do we have a count of all the laptops, all the desktops, all those kinds of things? Do we know what applications are out there? Are all of our users accounted for? From there, making sure that everything is patched, MFA is turned on, that the users that do have accounts have the least privileges that they need to do their day to day. Are we reducing the attack surface? Are we doing security awareness training to make sure that our users know what a phishing attempt looks like? Are we removing the old stuff? Are we removing old systems that we don't need anymore? Are we removing old applications that we don't need? Are we removing users that have left the company or are no longer needed? Then from there, planning, do we have a business continuity plan? If we do get ransomware, how can we make sure that we are up and running as quick as possible to minimize the downtime, to minimize how long it takes us to get back up and running, because all that downtime is lost revenue. Do we have an incident response plan? How are we making sure that we learn from any incidents that happen, that we document them, that we've gone through forensically and made sure we know what happened, why it happened, and how to fix it in the future? And that kind of ties into that operationalized side, where we're using that to make our monitoring better, make our detections better, and make the responses better. And that's part of the reason why Huntress on paper is actually known as Huntress Labs because we are more of a lab and experiment focused company where we are constantly tuning, updating, and changing our things to make sure that we are keeping up with all of the newest threats, to make sure that we are giving the best monitoring, the best detections, and the best responses to the things that are out there nowadays. So I'm not going to kind of belabor these points because these are things that are in place to help you out. But essentially, Huntress Managed EDR, why we're better together. That is the partnership between Huntress and Usherwood. And of course, in turn, you all, we are fully managed. So we're taking that day to day off of Usherwood's plate to make sure that all of the other things that they need to do for you are handled. We are the EDR that wrecks hackers, not budget. So we are providing software at a good price point that makes it easier for Usherwood to then add that to your stack. And loved by our users. Granted, for most of you, you are never going to touch it. Usherwood is going to be the one touching it for you. But across our customers, we have less than 1% false positives, 98.8% support CSAT, and consistently rated number one on G2, which is one of the main kind of players in the IT industry to kind of go over and rate different companies. Same thing with the ITDR side, yet again, backed by our human-led SOC. And that's kind of the main thing is the human-led. We're not letting AI just do what it wants with things. Everything is having actual trained eyes on things, being able to act on them, find new things, find new detections, see things that could have been missed otherwise. Hey, we saw this compromise on this one computer. Looks like it was coming from RDP internally. Let's go ahead and take a look at the other IP address that was on there. Oh, hey, we do have an agent on there. And from there, threat hunting across different devices, instead of just saying, hey, this one thing happened on one device. Cool, we'll go ahead and lock that down and that's it. No, we are seeing where it came from. We're following the full chain to make sure that everything is well known, well handled, and that no stone is left unturned. We have deep domain expertise in here. We publish a number of different things yearly. We are a CVE naming authority, not just for our own CVEs, but for CVEs across the industry. So if we see, and we have done this on several occasions, if we see a new threat happening to another company through their software, we can actually go ahead and publish and name those CVEs. That is how trusted Huntress is within this domain. So when it comes to ITDR, things that we are detecting, just so you have some understanding of what the tooling is doing, the EDR side is pretty straightforward. The ITDR side more so is looking for those session hijackings, the credential theft, people logging in from where they shouldn't be logging in, known bad VPN access, known bad data centers. You would be amazed how often there are full data centers with infrastructure that is nefarious. Shadow workflows, those are those weird workflow rules where someone is siphoning off emails to try and fake, hey, here is our new account number. Rogue applications, those are those applications tied to M365 that, yes, make your life easier to log into things, but can also be used for malicious purposes to exfiltrate data. Then overall, kind of the takeaways from all of this is not all hackers are bad or even wear hoodies. Granted, I do a little bit of hacking here and there just to upskill myself. I do own several hoodies and I do actually own a Guy Fawkes mask, but that's also just because I enjoy the irony of it. Everyone is potentially a target. Next Gen AV and other point solutions are not enough. We need to really be constantly on the cutting edge and having that layered approach. Threat actors are very adept at finding ways around defenses. And the real main takeaway here is that Usherwood, paired with Huntress, have your back. We'll, of course,
That's
pop this up.
fantastic.
And yeah, go ahead,
Thanks,
Stuart.
Andrew. That was great information.
Glad. as long as it helps people and hopefully helps people feel a little bit better as well that AI is not totally coming from them. It's not Skynet from Terminator, at least not yet. But essentially, with that, hopefully, this helped kind of put into perspective what is going on with cybercrime, what is going on, how we're protecting, and how you can stay protected. So. I
Great.
know you guys wanted to save a little bit of time for Q&A. I don't see anything in there as of current, but if anyone does have any questions, I am more than glad to answer to the best of my ability.
Yeah, we'll give that another minute and see if there are any questions.
Hopefully I didn't put everyone to sleep.
Andrew, one bit of information I wanted to add about the ransomware is with manufacturing, especially, we have a number of manufacturing clients, and the risk in manufacturing, especially, isn't usually the data that they have. It's more the fact that they are trying to make stuff. So that's the risk to them when ransomware is introduced, takes manufacturing offline, and it's a major pain point for those organizations and why they might be more willing to pay in those sort of scenarios. So it's definitely a risk that we are cognizant of being in that space.
Yeah, definitely. When it comes to ransomware, it is going to make machines unusable. So anything that is like an embedded machine for a CNC, a lathe, whatever automation may be there on the floor, it'll definitely grind that to a halt. Not being able to access the design files needed for certain things, or even the fact that a lot of times when it comes to ransomware, they will kind of go through beforehand, look for certain things, look for IP, whatever they can actually go in and exfiltrate, and also say, hey, if you don't pay, we're going to go in and leak that data as well. So they'll kind of do a two-prong where not only will they lock the data, but they will go ahead and actually exfiltrate known good data to be able to then say, hey, we're going to go leak this on the dark web for whoever wants it. I know fairly recently, I believe it was last year, third quarter, I think it was, Nike actually got hacked and their entire upcoming 2026, 2027 roadmap of products was actually leaked to the internet.
Excellent. Well, Andrew, we have a question. Other than ransomware, what kind of malware is affecting businesses most negatively?
Yeah, so ransomware is definitely one of the main ones in terms of financial loss because it definitely is one that is going to bring a company to a halt. But outside of that, it is going to be things like info stealers where they're able to exfiltrate data and really sell that data on the dark web, whatever it may be, use that to make you pay. Just overall things that are going to destroy the computer or leave persistent access. There are a number of different things. Usually, the main thing all of them kind of tie back to, whether it be ransomware, info stealers, or whatnot, is they're typically going after the data, either to destroy it, to make your day-to-day harder, or to exfiltrate it to be able to use that to either sell, get credentials, yet again, more data that they're stealing to try and sell access or maintain access. So in the end, ransomware is kind of a catch-all for certain things, but most malware and those kinds of things are typically looking for data, manipulating data in certain ways, whether that be to steal it, break it, just to be malicious, but the vast majority is going to be exfiltration, locking it down, whatever it may be to get some sort of financial gain nowadays.
I would add as well, excuse me, on the Microsoft 365 side, business email compromise is a huge moneymaker for threat actors and can happen very quickly. Money can change hands very quickly and be routed away from the right accounts very quickly, unfortunately. So another area in which it's big business for for that industry, unfortunately.
Yeah, that ties into even some of the AI stuff. Hey, someone gets into the finance manager's email, goes through, scans through emails that they've sent. Hey, load that into a language model. Go ahead and generate an email that sounds like it's coming from that finance manager, and then blast out an email to all the different vendors that they work with or customers that they work with. Hey, we've changed our direct deposit account. Any remittance should be sent to this account instead. And then they hide those emails within some random folder hidden within the tenant. And from there, the end customer is none the wiser. Hey, cool. Um, Finance manager told me to send it here instead. I'm going to go ahead and send that $20,000 wire transfer over to that account. That goes to the threat actor. They go ahead and bounce it through a couple accounts, and the money's clean, and they get away with it.
Thank you. Okay, we have no other questions. So again, thank you everyone for your time and have a great day. Take care.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Andrew.